Hey everyone, it is another time for a halftime talk. I'm glad you've taken some time to jump in this video with me. I've been doing this series for the last several weeks where we've capitalized on one piece of scripture, John 16:33. We've used it as a basis to launch out on some things about how difficult life can be, but God is constant in the middle of it. We've called it life is hard. God is. And so you should go back and listen to all those messages. We're about to step over out of this message series into another, and we're about, our kids in particular, are about to start a series on the idea of courage. And so I want to go back to John 16:33 and look at that with you. It says this in John 16:33 in the New Living Translation: I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. The three words here are, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. And that is an awesome piece, an awesome promise from Jesus. But I want to reread it to you from the New American Standard Bible. And it reads like this: These things I've spoken to you so that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. There are going to be all kinds of issues as you walk through life. But the next three words change just a bit. It goes, but take courage. I have overcome the world. And so I want to talk about the idea of courage. Our students in our kids ministry will begin this week talking about courage. We'll have an all-in service this Sunday talking about the idea of courage, and you'll hear some people's testimonies about courage. And just this week I was eating dinner, my family and I were eating dinner with a friend of ours who's going through a really difficult time. As we sat at their kitchen table, we found ourselves drinking out of glasses. A few of us had a quote from John Wayne on it. And it says that this quote from John Wayne goes like this: courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. And like I said, the person we're sitting with is actually going through a hard time. You'll see their face as part of the testimonies given on Sunday about courage. And I thought it was just really ironic, knowing what they've walked through. And I want to say this: a person who shows courage doesn't mean they're not walking through a scary situation or difficult situation. It just means there's risk involved. You don't know how it's going to pan out. Andy Stanley is a pastor and a leader that I follow a lot and gain a lot of understanding from. And at a conference recently, he was quoted as saying this: a single act of courage is often a catalyst for the extraordinary. Boy, I want you to think about that sometimes we have to step into things, and the way when we step into things, it changes everything. It takes things from being ordinary to being extraordinary. It changes times and seasons. We could list a bunch of people. William Wilberforce, without his act of courage, and at great risk to himself politically, he stepped into the idea of trying to stop the slave trade in England and Great Britain, and did it eventually over a period of time. Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War, and wanted, believing those words that are in the Declaration of Independence that says all men are created equal, and taking that so seriously that he could offer the order to begin firing on Fort Sumter after the South had seceded. Great courage, but things have never been the same since. Martin Luther King Jr., again, a man who stepped into that and chose not the easy way of violence, but chose a non-violent way of creating resistance to the point of death. Great courage to do some of the things he did. And our lives have been forever changed because of it. Then we could think biblically through lives of people like Moses. Great courage to even step towards the burning bush. Take greater courage to walk away from the burning bush and walk into Pharaoh's court. But the life of the Hebrew people would never be the same after that. Step out of the ordinary into the extraordinary. Gideon being stuck in that wine press, hiding, took great courage to walk out of that wine press and then tear down some idols that his fathers and other people had built in a little town, and then to take only 300 people and walk in to a battle to see his people liberated. Great courage, but things were different afterwards. Joshua crossing the Jordan River with the people of Israel at flood stage, not knowing if God would answer the prayers there, and then walking towards Jericho with those big walls, marching around it silently for 7 days. On the seventh day, blowing trumpets, hoping that God would show up. Took great courage, but life was never the same after that. David, approaching Goliath, took great courage, but his life and the life of the Israeli people were never the same after that. I want to think about a guy named Peter, who one day had to take a step of courage, and it was a a momentum builder for him that would carry him through other seasons of life. In Matthew 14, you'll find Jesus doing ministry on a hillside, and the scripture tells Matthew 14:22. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. Some of you feel like the disciples today. You feel like God sent you to do something and he just left you. He's taking great courage to keep moving on. And I appreciate that. But I want to tell you, keep taking courage. After sending them home, it goes on to say in verse 23, he went up to the hillside by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Some of you feel like that. Like you've done something, it's left you in a solitary place. Now it's dark. You don't know which way to go, what to do. Meanwhile, verse 24 says, the disciples were in trouble far away from the land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. A storm had blown up. Some of you feel like you've paid attention to God, done what you've done what he's told you to do, and then you found yourself in a big heap of trouble, and you don't know what to do. The scripture says it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and so what do you do at that moment? The scripture tells Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walk on the water, they were terrified in their fear. They cried out, "It's a ghost." Their answer was coming, but they didn't recognize it, and that brought more for them to stay close to. They didn't know what to do. Verse 27 says, "But Jesus spoke to them at once. Don't be afraid." And the next words are huge. Take courage. I am here. Some of you are looking for Jesus in the middle of the storm, and he is absolutely there. Take courage. He's there. Peter called out to him and said, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." He took Jesus' words to take courage at face value, and he said, "I'm doing it. I'm walking towards Jesus." Some of you are right now in the middle of something, and you need to be like Peter and walk out there. Jesus is saying, yes, come on over. Yes, do something different. Yes, catalyze something. Scriptures go on to say this, that he had to save Peter, and eventually they both made it back to the boat. And he said, it tells us that when they climbed back in the boat, the wind stopped. The disciples worshipped him. "You truly are the Son of God," they exclaimed. And their perspective, everything was different at that point. It took an act of courage for the ordinary to become extraordinary. So I'm going to encourage you today, in your own life, listen, take courage. Whatever God's nudging you towards, take courage. Take that step, what you know God's called you to do. Be aware that he's with you and step into it. Maybe that's a thing at work. Maybe it's a thing in your family. Maybe it's a business idea that you have. Maybe it's something that will improve your work environment. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with a friend or a family member who you know that maybe isn't walking as closer to Jesus as they need to, and you need to engage them with grace and truth. Let me encourage you, do that. Take courage, step into that so that you can catalyze something extraordinary. Maybe it's stepping into a ministry position you've never stepped into before. Maybe it's going on a mission trip. Maybe it's doing something outside the realm of what's normal for your life. And I think God's telling you, take courage, step into it. Let's catalyze something extraordinary as we walk ahead. So, looking forward to seeing you guys this Sunday at church. T, come join us.